You are listening to program notes for the Florida Orchestra's Huff Family Foundation Masterworks series. I'm Andy Tchaikovsky, social media manager of the Florida Orchestra, classically trained percussionist, and the host of this podcast. In this episode, I will be talking about Jean Sibelius' Violin Concerto in D minor and Sergei Rachmaninoff's Symphony No. 3 in A minor, so you can dive deeper into the music anytime, anywhere. These audio program notes are authored by Kurt Loft, a local writer who has written about the arts in the Tampa Bay area for more than 40 years. You can find his full transcriptions at floridaorchestra.org. Let's dive in. Jean Sibelius, 1865 to 1957, Violin Concerto in D minor, Opus 47, performance duration approximately 35 minutes. Sibelius covered a lot of ground. He was born at the end of the Civil War and died the year Elvis released Jailhouse Rock. But given his long life, Sibelius did not spin music to the end. In fact, his absence from the musical scene is something of a paradox, considering that a composer of such genius would, presumably, continue to evolve and engage an admiring public. Instead, Sibelius retired in 1929 at the peak of his powers, living another 3 decades on a government stipend, with almost no composing or conducting. This infertile period is known as the Silence of Järvenpää, referring to his hometown in Finland. What shut off the creative spigot? Some biographers attribute the end of his output to a combination of a hypercritical attitude toward his work, depression, or alcoholism, which he battled most of his life. Sibelius admitted, quote, "My drinking has genuine roots that are both dangerous and go deep," end quote. Despite his disease, Sibelius was prolific during his best years, composing 550 works that included piano pieces, songs, symphonies, tone poems, chamber music, and ballet scores. His Violin Concerto is an unquestioned masterpiece, and revered by concert violinists for more than a century. Sibelius composed his lushly romantic work between serious bouts of darkness in his life, one reason for its often stalled progress and completion. Friends literally had to drag Sibelius out of pubs so he could work on the final movement. The premiere, originally set for the fall of 1904, had to be moved to the following February. The concerto is in many ways a subtle work, one more graceful than gregarious, but deeply expressive. Cast in the key of D minor, it opens with an impassioned allegro that overwhelms in length the 2 movements that follow. Its development holds listeners in hushed rapture, the music a mix of foreboding and delicate sweetness. Then, the soloist performs a large cadenza, a virtuosic improvisation that unfolds outside the written page and structure of the concerto. The voice of the solo violin never leaves center stage. It remains prominent through all 3 movements, even to the point of dominating the orchestra. The relatively short second movement plays out in the form of an extended song, and the finale counters with a festive dance. The work fell flat at its premiere, notes Guy Rickards in his 1997 biography on the composer. The soloist, quote, "staggered as best he could through the score. In several places, soloist and orchestra became unstuck, so that a clear view of the piece was hard to obtain," end quote. Realizing he had a problem on his hands, Sibelius revised the score and cut out much of the fat. But even after the 1905 performance of the new and improved version, critics found fault wherever the notes landed. The English critic Donald Tovey was among the most outspoken, calling the finale a polonaise for polar bears. But time has been kind, and over the years, the concerto grew into its own. Once in the hands of the great violinist Jascha Heifetz, it became a staple of the concert hall, and his 1935 recording is regarded by many as definitive. Today, the concerto takes its rightful place alongside those of Beethoven, Mendelssohn, Tchaikovsky, Brahms, and Bruch. Sergei Rachmaninoff, 1873 to 1943, Symphony No. 3 in A minor, Opus 44. Performance duration approximately 39 minutes. 4 decades separated Rachmaninoff's first and third symphonies, both neglected compared to the celebrated second, and both undermined by harsh criticism and public disappointment. After the disastrous premiere of his first symphony in 1897, an intoxicated conductor didn't help, Rachmaninoff spiraled into depression and sought psychoanalysis and hypnosis. For 3 years, he composed nothing of significance, but he would eventually grow a thicker layer of skin, and when his third symphony was accused of being, quote, 40 years out of date, he responded by saying, quote, "It has been heard once in every capital in the musical world, and it has been condemned in them all. But it is quite possible that in 50 years' time, it will be rediscovered and become a sensational success," end quote. Sensational might be a stretch, but this symphony from 1936 contains some of Rachmaninoff's most intriguing thematic concepts and radiates with his trademark orchestral coloring. Cast in the key of A minor, the third is the composer's most compact symphony, and the only in 3 movements. Adding to its coherence is a motto theme that appears throughout, a cyclical technique that Beethoven employed in his famous Symphony No. 5 as the glue to hold it all together. Rachmaninoff opens his symphony with a stark woodwind theme, similar to the beginning of the Third Piano Concerto, then a blast from full orchestra that he develops and expands through the first movement. He inverts it in the lyrical adagio and creates contrast in a quasi-scherzo that sounds strangely similar to Berlioz's Symphony Fantastique. Then comes the finale, a tour de force of contrapuntal writing alive with Russian dance rhythms. It also reveals his obsession with the medieval chant known as the Dies Irae, Day of Wrath, from the traditional Mass for the Dead. This ominous tune might be thought of as the composer's leitmotif for Fate, a lifelong idée fixe heard in the Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini, First Piano Sonata, Isle of the Dead, symphonic dances, and other pieces. In total, a third of his 45 published works. After hearing this music, listeners might wonder why it's often dismissed as an overripe romantic relic. Yes, Rachmaninoff gave us plenty of full-throated tunes, but he also crafted music of architectural logic linked by recurring themes, a slow movement married to a scherzo, and an exhilarating dance to wrap things up. This season, we wanted to give you a few key things to listen for in each Masterworks program. Here's what to keep an ear out for in this program. While the violin is immersed in a brooding orchestral lament throughout Jean Sibelius' Violin Concerto in D minor, listen for how it sings above the din, rhapsodic and clear as glass. Rachmaninoff was obsessed with the 13th century medieval chant known as the Dies Irae, which he fused almost demonically into dozens of his works. Listen for this ominous theme in the final movements of Sergei Rachmaninoff's Symphony No. 3. Thank you for listening to Sound Waves with the Florida Orchestra. Enjoy the concert.